This episode is brought to you by Muntins Malts, a company that is passionate about providing premium malts to brewers worldwide. For over a century, Muntins has been a leading supplier of brewing and distilling malts, offering the finest British malted barley on the market. You can experience the difference Muntins offers by joining a recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club, because every kit that ships out now includes premium Muntins malt. You know, we've known the Muntins crew for a long time, and I can tell you, friend, you're going to love brewing with their grains. Ask your local supply shop to carry Muntins malts, or homebrewers can join our Trub Club at homebrewhappyhour.com/club, be a part of the community, and come brew with us. Thank you, Muntins, for supporting our efforts and homebrewers worldwide. Today's show is brought to you by Hopsdirect.com. Grown in the esteemed Yakima Valley on the Pewterball family farm, Hopsdirect.com offers the widest variety of hops available online at incredibly competitive pricing. It's simple. They grow hops, they sell hops, and they ship hops straight from their family-owned farm to your doorstep. Producing the highest quality hops is Hopsdirect.com's passion, and they're proud to be an independent grower in the craft beer industry. Go to Hopsdirect.com right now and get what you need to make your brew day better. That's Hopsdirect.com. Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch-right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial Yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial Yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Is homebrewing a dying hobby? Does my infected batch mean I have infected equipment? And avoiding scorched grains. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 425. Well, hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. And if you, my friend, have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you could go to Homebrew Happy Hour and use the submit a question link. You could email Joshua at homebrewhappyhour.com, but even better, call it in. You could text it, but call it in and leave a voicemail to 325-305-6107. And when I use your voicemail on a future episode, you'll get yourself a gift card to kegconnection.com. It does not get any better than that. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Stubing, joined as always by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com, Mr. James Carlson over there. James, welcome, my friend. We were going to have Boss Man on the show, too. He's extremely busy. He's extremely stressed. I didn't help, so I just dropped it. So it's just you and me. I appreciate your time this week. We're going to get through the questions. I will give viewers and mostly listeners at home a heads up. The first question about is it a dying hobby? Todd had a lot of input on that, so we might... I didn't have time because it was a last minute cancellation, so I didn't change out the question. So we might rehash it in the feedback part or whatever next week, but I'm getting ahead of myself. James, before I get into the actual relevant small talk, I don't know if you remember, I solicited people to deal with my rat, and I got a lot of text messages. And I will say this, guys, nobody earned a gift card because all y'all's recommendations weren't needed. In my siege, the great siege of 2025, I came face to face with the rat, and I don't remember if I had done that by this time we recorded last week. I'll put a photo of him on the screen. My wife didn't want me to shoot him at the time while she was there. She thought it was unsafe. I knew the next day they were going to the zoo, so I was like, I'll shoot him when she's gone. I set up all these sticky traps all up there around that and this and that. Like he's not going to get out. He can't without going over these traps. That son of a gun, I have him on my camera. I don't know how he leapt over the sticky traps. He nose dives into the sidewall, hits the ground, takes off running. I haven't seen him since. So my rat problem for now is resolved. I don't know if a cat got him. I don't know. You know, I put down so much poison up there, like the bait Brits that coagulate, I guess. I don't know what they do when they eat them, but he wasn't falling for nothing. This is like I think I said last week or the last time we talked about it. This is a very Tom and Jerry thing, and it's been very embarrassing for me. But I think my rat problem is resolved. I had literally 40 plus they're mostly text messages about here's what I would do and this and this and this. And it ranged from the actually helpful to the completely absurd. And I appreciate everyone's input, but nobody put on there he's going to run away and never come back. So I don't have a gift card to give to anybody for that. I wanted to start off the show with that. We do have a little bit of stuff to get through. Guys, it is the absolute last call for Trub Club's recipe for the month of March 2025, and it is this delicious California Common. Go to patreon.com/Homebrew Happy Hour. Join a recipe receiving tier. You'll get this shipped out very, very soon. We appreciate our sponsors, Munton's Malt, hopsdirect.com, and of course, Imperial Yeast for always providing premium ingredients for these kits and always believing in the things we do, which brings me to my last piece of small talk. Kolsch Cup 2025 registrations live. We're a little over halfway in regards to people who have entered, and almost all of them have paid. So reserve your spot right now, kolschcup.com, or just go to homebrewhappyhour.com. Click on Kolsch Cup up there in the menu. All the rules are there. A sample scorecard is there. There's if you go to our Instagram, you'll see the trophy came in. Very, very pretty. And we got second and third place trophies as well instead of just medals. They are not as pretty as the grand champions will be. We are very excited. That'll be at the end of May, but you have time still to register at kolschcup.com. I imagine, James, if though you're going to enter Kolsch Cup, you got to be brewing now. Like now is last call for that too, isn't it? For a decent Kolsch by the end of May? Or when would you say is the last point you would brew to have a confident award-winning Kolsch?
4 to 6 weeks, I think.
Yeah, so we're getting there. We're getting there as we this episode publishes on in a couple days, but I mean it's already basically April. So you're right. They got about 8 weeks. So when they're listening to this, they should be brewing a Kolsch. A Kolsch is not. I mean, you could technically, guys, turn it around from grain to glass quick. But is it going to be an award-winning Kolsch? I'm not confident. So yeah, like James said, 4 to 6 weeks. You should be doing it now. California Common, Kolsch Cup. That's all I have. Man, when Todd's not here, I have no one to bother with prolonged small talk. James, that's all I have. Do you have anything that we need to go? I know you didn't. No. Let's get to the questions. We don't have listener feedback, and we got a bunch of text and emails. So I'm going to go ahead and get us in. This first question is sort of a listener feedback. So I'll do that bumper.
It's time for listener feedback,
along with the gong of questions, because it's not really feedback, but it is a question that came in, and it has to do with a buddy of ours, Trent Musho, who runs the Brew Show YouTube channel. Very popular. They marginally more successful of a YouTube channel than ours is. But Trent had published a video recently, and our buddy Seth texted me this week, and he said, Josh, your friend Trent just published a great conversation starter on his page. The topic is about homebrewing being dead, or at least very much in the dying process. What does the Homebrew Happy Hour gang think about the state of homebrewing? What do you think could be done by companies or by individuals to help bring the hobby back to life? It's really a good video, and I encourage others to go watch it too. Okay, you guys have a great week. James, I know you're on YouTube all the time. I don't know if you watched that video. I'm going to put it in the description below for people. The gist is basically what you and I have known for a while, that the home brewing, specifically the industry at least side of it, we know has been in steady decline since COVID. We had an article.
I think COVID's to blame for it, personally.
And that's where I'll let you elaborate before but real quick, people can enjoy a hobby and have a good time and anecdotally think, no, man, I brew all the time, without realizing, though, the bigger industry. I mean, if you and I had a nickel for every homebrew supply shop, that the brick and mortar that has closed since 2020, we'd have a crap ton of nickels, my friend. It would be an unfortunate thing. But yeah, your premise that COVID is the main factor. Elaborate a little.
Well, I think it forced people to brew, that forced them to be in a position to brew because nothing was open. And I think that after a while, like, I think honestly, they just got tired of being cooped up, and they got tired of brewing their own beer. And when everything opened up, you can't, in Texas, you can't swing a dead cat and not hit a craft beer in a convenience store now. So supplies out there, there are people, you can get, gosh, I was in Allsup's the other day, and there was I can't remember which beer it was, but it was shocking that was a really good craft beer. And for the life of me, I can't remember what it was, in an Allsup's convenience store.
That's wild.
It's different, man. It is. The only thing, and another thing too, is it's kind of gotten expensive. So I think you take being forced to brew because you couldn't go to a bar, and everything's gone up in price. Craft beer is readily available, but just about anywhere you go, even Walmart. It's kind of a perfect storm hit on the homebrew hobby. You're brewing more than I think I've ever seen you brew, and I certainly am in 2025. I enjoy it. I like it. I think a lot of people should get into the hobby. I got in because I thought I could save money, which was a bad thing. Because it wasn't.
No one saves money.
It was horrible beer. But once you get over a certain level, and I'm not by any means, guys, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I've developed a certain way of brewing and a certain type of beer. And everybody knows it's pills. I'm absolutely crazy for it. And I've gotten fairly decent at brewing a Pilsner. And it's simple. I mean, it's just, you keep everything nice and clean and sanitized. I mean, you can really have, it's almost a smash beer. I mean, you could do like I did one with an ale malt, and I didn't even use any carapils. I just used it. There's a little more protein content in that, I believe. And it made a fantastic Pilsner, and it wasn't a lot of work.
I didn't know you didn't use carapils in that batch. It turned out great.
No.
I had a
yeah. So, I think it's all in how you go about it. If you're getting in the hobby under the wrong pretenses, then you probably won't stay in there very long. But for the people that we deal with and the people that see the show and comment, every single person I've talked to absolutely loves the hobby. So I think there's this core group of people that really love to homebrew, whether the problem is getting the stuff. The homebrew store's closing down. I would not say it's a dying hobby. I think it's in a lull right now.
I agree. It's on life support. And where my strongest opinions, because I'm a man of many hobbies. Ask my wife. It annoys
me too.
It annoys the heck out of her, because I will, my entire life, especially adult life, and especially when I made even decent money, it's like, oh, I'm into this now. I'm into this. And I go big. When I first got into jiu-jitsu, it was like I bought the nicest stuff after a month of training, and I'm training 4 times a week, and where I've never cared the mainstream part of it, though. Like jiu-jitsu, like people right now for that sport are how we got to get these pro athletes paid like a real pro athlete and this or that. And I'm like, guys, there's no money, and there's no money in the sport, and it's not a fun thing to watch. Like, I was watching the NCAA college wrestling championships this past weekend, and my wife could not have been more bored with that on the TV. It is not something that the average person does. Where I'm going with this is that has never ever stopped me from enjoying something. But where this affects the home brewer, because I couldn't care less. I'm enjoying brewing. I brew with my pop. We make good beer. I like that you're brewing. I like that Todd brews. Y'all make good beer. It's something we share. It got this podcast going. But at the end of the day, I've never been like, I need a gazillion people into it. I would love that. Maybe it's my fault homebrew's dying because I'm not doing more to evangelize. But what I'm saying is, though, where it can hurt the homebrewer, though, is the lack of popularity has made it more difficult to get fresh ingredients. And so that is like, if you're Austin is a craft brewery haven, and there's one supply shop, and they don't have a lot of things in stock, and a lot of the stuff is special order. Might as well order it online. You know what I mean? Like that's the sentiment I get from people.
Even the online retailers are slowly going out.
They really are. There's a lot of websites, but there's like 4 owners of all these websites. Like it is going out. Shipping costs are a lot. Like, I don't know. More Beer used to do free shipping on most stuff. I'll get fact checked. This will get people in the comments. There we go. I'm pretty sure nobody does free shipping on grains anymore. Like, I'm very confident in saying that. So you want to buy a sack of lager malt or Planet malt or whatever. It's however much for the sack plus that same price probably for the shipping because it weighs 55 pounds. It is not, like you said, homebrewing has never been a cost-saving endeavor for the average homebrewer, but it certainly isn't today if you're having to buy bulk that gets shipped to you and all that. And if your local supply shops close down, it's, I don't know what companies could do more. Seth had asked, like, what do you think could be done by companies or individuals? I think the individuals, the best thing you do is continue brewing and invite your immediate, homebrewing can survive at a hyper local level if you support that, if you evangelize it, like start a homebrew club, that could very well happen. Brewing, here's my shameless plug. Start a homebrew club, and all of y'all join the patreon.com/homebrew happy hour chub club and get the California comment. No, I'll stop pushing it. But homebrew clubs are a good way of getting people into it. Obviously I have my favorite homebrewers that YouTube and all that, and I'll share those videos across it. But like you said, it's in this lull where I hope it comes back to where it was in that kind of elevated state we had during COVID. But that elevated state, like you said, is the reason why it corrected itself. The market corrected itself. Yeah, that's what happened. People it turned into something that's a lot of people expected it to be a little. This is just my opinion. It's really gotten to be an expensive hobby of just buying a kit now. A 5-gallon kit is what, $40? Dude, a lot, usually more. Yeah. It's usually more. Yes. So if you're getting like a smash kit from More Beer, I haven't looked at Northern Brewer, but let's take a look. Yeah, I'll say if you pull that up at More Beer, and they mostly don't come with yeast, right? So you go to recipe kits. I think we have an affiliate link. Just go to More Beer, guys that are listening. You don't have to use our affiliate. But like Pliny the Elder. That's the first kit. This is all grain is $50. $50 for the kit. So their cheapest one they have is oddly enough, it's a blonde ale. So you could basically call that American Kolsch. 25. It's $24.99. Yep. And so it is not free shipping. You have to get yeast. It is $24.99 and free shipping on orders over $59. So More Beer is out there. So you could order a couple of kits and not pay for any shipping. So that's a pretty good deal. I would definitely support them because they've been a good customer of ours. Oh, they're good dudes. We had them on whenever they acquired Homebrew Supply, and Chris and Olin, and really good guys. Yeah, like I said, I think they gave us an affiliate link. That's my bad if y'all are trying to support us while you shop with there. But don't even worry about it. Just go support them, because the gist of what James and I are getting at is, if you enjoy the hobby, continue supporting the businesses that are supplying the hobby like that. And share it with your friends. Because they might be interested in getting into it. That's really how, isn't that how craft beer blew up? In my anecdotal experience, craft beer was introduced to me from someone who enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it. And then when people know, they either think I'm in the industry or I'm a functional alcoholic when they follow my Instagram. So they'll ask me questions about beer or whatever. And if they're in Texas and I can get them over to my house, I'll share homebrew, or get them over to my parents' place where the majority of our beers share our actual homebrew. But if I'm just out with them at a sports bar, hey man, let's get you a Fireman's 4, or let's get you, whatever local craft, something that I know is going to be on the shelf as well if they enjoy it. And then boom, it in their life can blow up in a good way, guys. I know we're still talking about booze, but in a responsible way, it is good to share these kinds of things. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I won't go over the whole synopsis of the Brew Show's video. I'll put it down there. If you're watching here at youtube.com/Homebrew Happy Hour, let us know what you think of Trent's video. Go comment and share all his stuff too. But go watch it. I think you'll enjoy it. And it's not doom and gloom. It is just, he gives a little bit of solutions in regards to like what we're kind of glossing over or talking about at a surface level, like continue brewing, sharing stuff. We're talking about More Beer. More Beer has those new flash kits, which are like, you do everything in the keg. The thought process is like a Mr. Beer 5.0, where you could get somebody into brewing their own beer pretty affordably and pretty easily. And that's what it's about, in my opinion, with this hobby, with making anything, right? Like my wife right now is really into sourdough and making it and doing a starter and doing all that. And she got into it from somebody who was also really into making bread and doing all this. And so it's not like making sourdough is not this big community, but where I'm going with it is like someone shared it with her. She enjoyed it. She's a white woman. I'd put that in there for, and so she was into this kind of stuff. Like, oh, look, I'm a homemaker. Okay, cool. Perfect. It's easy. When she realized how easy it is, the veil was torn before her eyes and she was able to do it in confidence. We can do that for brewing. We're trying to do that with this show. Like, Seth, how dare you ask us what we're doing to preserve home brewing? We're trying. But really, like we said, I'm beating a dead horse, but continue brewing. If you enjoy it, continue doing it. That's what I say. And I will say this, a shameless plug for our Chub Club. We have had many people, and I've shared it with you, I've shared it with Todd, I've shared it on the show and listener feedback. A ton of people come and go into recipe receiving tiers based on their availability to brew. Like, we have had a core group of people. We've had 7 or 8 that have been with us since the beginning and have gotten a recipe kit every single month. And I salute that, because like my pop and I doing Brew Day lives, that was rough last year. Like, rough trying to schedule it, getting the Brew Day done, doing 12 batches. Well, I did 14 total last year, but 12 live stream. That was a lot of brewing for us. It's not sustainable for everybody. Which does bring me to, we are not having a Brew Day live this month because we couldn't get our schedule planned, and I couldn't get the recipe in time. Imperial had a little bit of a delay. I haven't been up to headquarters to get the recipe kit. We're not doing a Brew Day live, but my pop and I are building the teaser collar very soon. I'll record that and publish it. But wrapping up Seth's question, guys, again, if you're watching at youtube.com/Homebrew Happy Hour, first off, smash that like button. Leave a comment, though, and let us know about what you think about Trent's video and what you think could be done to revitalize this hobby. I'm not going to say to save it, because who are we? We're not saving nothing. Homebrewing will never be, there will never be a time when there's not someone enjoying beer that they made themselves, period. That it's not dying in the literal sense. But I think, like James said, that inflated surge that happened during COVID, we're just seeing a market correction is all we're seeing. Yeah. Like the market was not real. It was, oh, you're stuck at home and you have nothing to do. Like, we're seeing that in other things too. One of my hobbies is disc golf, and a lot of money was poured into disc golf because they thought, oh my God, disc golf is the biggest sport ever. And now there's videos of YouTubers going, is disc golf dead? Disc golf is dead. The market corrects itself. I'm really hoping the housing market corrects itself, because I just got my tax bill. So if we could get people stop moving to Central Texas, I would really appreciate that. Robbery, brother. Robbery. It is theft. This is the Anarchy Happy Hour. So Seth, thank you so much for submitting that question. A reminder, guys, doesn't matter if you email, or if you text, or if you call our hotline at 325-305-6107. We want to hear from you, your questions, your comments, your feedback. If I use your voicemail on a future episode, though, you do get yourself a gift card to kegconnection.com. Moving on to question number 2. Happens to be an email. Our buddy Eric wrote in. He said, hi, guys. I tried brewing a Hefe, but it turned sour at some point in my keg. Do you think the infection is in my fermenter or in my keg? I use buckets to ferment in right now, but this batch was made a couple of months ago, and I couldn't tell you which bucket I used. What would you do in this situation? Is the keg unusable now too? Believe it or not, this is my first infected brew in 4 years of brewing. Congratulations. All good things must come to an end, I suppose, Eric. 4 years is a good run with no infection.
Yeah.
He should be knocking on wood. He didn't just jinx himself. But James, it happens. You and I are no strangers. We actually have a video of you purposefully infecting an overnight mash that was in the mash tun. So I'm gonna segue with that. That mash tun you used. Remember when we did the overnight mash and it had a little bit of pellicle on the top?
Pellicles, yeah.
Did that ruin that mash tun forever? Did you get rid of that? I know you didn't.
No, remember I just skimmed off the top, real carefully skimmed the pellicles off, and I pumped it in the fermenter and put yeast on it, and it was fine. I think if it would have set any longer, then it would have gotten established into the mash and probably would have had some issues. But I'd forgot about doing that. That was a good test of because at one time it's funny how people are always trying to come up with an easier way of making all grain beer. And I just don't think letting a sugary substance that's slowly cooling down overnight,
it wasn't
not how do you
ideal.
Not get it infected, because you're basically, it's one big culture, and the bacteria is just wanting to eat. So people done it. We did it. I did see a little mold, and we skimmed that off, and it was fine, but I wouldn't do that regularly.
No. And for Eric's question too, if you like that lemon drop pills at HomebrewCon 2017 or whenever it was, it presented the off flavor. I'm calling it an infection at that point. I might be, you can correct me if my words are wrong, but that keg was put back into rotation, right? Where I'm going is like, first off, do you think the keg is the culprit? I suspect it's Eric's fermenter, but what do you think is usually the culprit when you get an infected batch?
Yeah, it kind of depends on how long was it in the keg. Was it in the keg and it tasted fine, and then the longer it sat in the keg, the worse it got? Kind of the whole thing with us is, I think we had identified Michael. Was it Michael that tasted that?
It was Michael Ferguson. Yep.
Yeah. And I think he had identified it as diacetyl. So, maybe that was introduced maybe that was in the keg. I don't know. It's hard to guess. I would think that if it was in the fermenter, yes. I don't know about you, but I always taste it.
Yes.
And I think that you would probably maybe you would taste it if the infection had started in the fermenter. It sounds like maybe it was something in the keg, but no, you won't have to throw that keg away. Just take it all apart, scrub it real good, and do a deep sanitize. A lot of people, they use the term burn, which means you use a acid-based sanitizer and just really clean it real good, replace the O-rings. And I think it'll be fine. I would never throw away a keg.
Well,
Look inside and make sure you don't have some porous welding on the inside or any kind of deep scratches that can harbor bacteria that you can't get to. So that would be the only option of getting rid of keg.
Correct me if I'm wrong. He didn't tell us the turnaround time in the bucket, but for a bucket transfer, you're usually opening up the whole bucket, putting your auto siphon. Yeah. I say that he could have a spout. Let's just assume though he's doing it like how I did in the early days. I was too cheap and lazy to put in a spout, so I just opened the top. If it was, he said it turned sour. If it was in the fermenter having lacto, like a literal or Brett or whatever. Bacteria causes sour. You would visually see that as you're transferring, right? Like that stuff doesn't. Oh, yeah. That stuff doesn't. Does that stuff form in a keg after the fact? That's I guess what I'm asking.
Well, I don't know. I guess it's possible. Going back to the bucket in the fermenter, you get these big waxy plastic bubbles on top, and it's infected. Krausen residue is not the same thing. So that just is the residue left over from high fermentation or high krausen. So if you do have white, waxy, plastic-looking bubbles on top, it's lacto.
Yeah, it's
Or
going to be a
or
sour.
a combination of both.
It'll be a sour. We know that.
Yeah.
Because I know
and some people like that. I mean, they're Imperial sells a is it Brett? It's a sour. I don't even know if you would call it a yeast. It's more of a bacteria, isn't it?
And I don't remember if they kept the name. The strain I'm thinking of was Sour Patch Kids or Sour Batch Kids, or I forgot. I think they had to rename it because of a copyright thing, because obviously there's a candy. But because one of our original bumper video rolls I did for them had that pouch in there, and was it Casey or Owen was like, hey, if you could take that out of the video, we'd appreciate it, because we got a cease and desist. I was like, oh god, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm asking, because like, so related, but sort of like Lorena has always told me before, if you're purposely doing like kettle sours and stuff, hey, have specific equipment for it just to be safe,
Yeah.
So do you think Eric needs to go as far as making that fermenter his sour fermenter now, or getting a new one?
I don't think. I mean, that's drastic. I mean, that's worst case scenario. But I think if you just scrub it real good with a Scotch-Brite and scrub the tubes and replace the O-rings and all that, I think you'll be fine.
I agree. But again, if Eric or anyone listening did decide, I want to purposefully do sours, you would agree it is probably good practice to have specific equipment for fermenting and consuming a sour, compared to other styles that you don't want the potential of that bacteria to infect.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't hurt, but I'll never do a sour, so I don't have to worry about that.
You've never done one on purpose?
No, not on purpose.
Yeah.
I've done plenty accidentally.
I always, every time we talk about sours, I always just am reminded of, remember when, was his name Andrew? This was so long ago. And I'm like 95% sure his name was Andrew. When you and I got to Portland, I believe it was you and I that he took to Great Notion. It was actually all of us, I think. And they're like famous. I think it was Great Notion. It was somewhere up in Portland where they're famous for, like, their flagship was this blueberry one. And we're being nice. Oh, you're showing us around town. This is great. And everyone's going around like, that is really good. That is good. And I was just like trying to put the fakest smile on, like, wow, that's sour. Trying to be. It's Central Texas. There's obviously Jester King, Blue Out. There's a lot of places that do farmhouse and sours. And I have to just, I don't despise it, but I have to tell them it's just not my style. That's all.
Yeah, I had a watermelon sour in Fort Worth at a brewery or a tap house. I don't think it was a brewery. And it wasn't bad, but it wasn't in your face sour. It was very subtle. And the watermelon was that was the one up, the flavor up front with just a little hint of sour. That wasn't bad. Now, I wouldn't buy a whole bunch of it, but
I was about to ask you. I was going to say,
if you just have one glass, I mean, it was the coolest place. I wish I knew. Clay took me there. I went one weekend to visit, and you walked in and it was just, they had like 30 taps.
What, it was Fort Worth, you said? Or where was it?
I can't remember.
Okay.
I can't remember the name of it. But you could buy growlers, you could buy crowlers, and or you just sat in there, and it was almost like the coffee shop at Friends, but it was a tap house. That's kind of the best way to describe it. It was a really cool place.
That, back to the first question, areas like that are how craft beer thrive, right? Like whether it is a proper like brew pub that's making it themselves, or a tap house that has a bunch of selection and just a fun place to hang out. If homebrewers could replicate that somehow for their local community, we would be thriving. But wrapping up Eric Stain, yeah, I mean, I didn't ask you this, but I'd hesitate to even assume that the Hefe yeast strain could be the culprit, because I doubt it. That's not really
yeah, probably not. It is certainly a possibility. It depends on how it was stored, but I would say, all things being equal, the usual culprit is in the vessel it's in. So was it in the fermenter? I don't know. You always want to taste them. Like if you're doing a hydrometer reading, you have to fill that vessel to float the hydrometer. taste it after you get a reading, and you'll know immediately what kind of shape. Your taste buds are very sensitive, so you will pick up on any slight flaw. Now, there's a difference between an infection and a flaw. An infection is a bacteria that gets in there and it ruins the beer by souring it. And I wouldn't say ruins it. I mean, people do that on purpose because they like sours, but that's a small percentage in my opinion. And then you've got flaws. Like if you pitch the yeast a little too warm for like I did that one day, and it had it had picked up some flaws and some taste that I didn't like at all. And it was Lorena that actually told me exactly what it was.
Yeah, so she's good. We agree on that.
I think she's a Cicerone, isn't she?
Boo, don't get me lying. I mean, she probably is. If she's not, I'll just start telling people she is. You're welcome, Lorena. I'm going to start the Lorena Evans fan club is what I could do. Some people have asked me if I have a crush on her. I'm like, is it obvious? Duh. Like Lorena's my favorite brewer. I've been very vocal about that. She knows her stuff. I gotta get her back on the show. That's what I gotta do.
Definitely.
And that's probably a question.
Cool.
That's a question for her. Well, I will wrap it up though, asking you. So long ago, because this is our 425th episode. It's been a while. Jonathan Etley from National Chemicals, who's not even there anymore, had made the claim that iodophor or an iodine-based sanitizer is the best in regards to bacteria and getting rid of it and all that. Do you have a favorite sanitizer? If you were to do a deep sanitizing, I'm going to just nuke this bad boy and get it sterile.
No, I mean, that iodophor is good. To think about it, that's what they use in hospitals when they do surgery. So you can't get any better than that. So that's a lot of people like the one step. We had a product that we tried to market. It just never took off. And unfortunately, that product was discontinued due to slow sales. But the one step products, the acid based, they're fine. But iodophor is really hard to beat. That's how I feel too. Now, obviously, Todd gets annoyed when it stains stuff, but I tell him that's how it does. It'll stain. If you use silicone hose, it'll stain them. It'll turn them. And Eric, your bucket is going to have a hue of beige or whatever color you want to call that. Like, but I always tell Todd when I'm messing with him, like, that's how you know it's working, pal. That's how you know it's working. I want my skin stained. I want my equipment stained. And I will tell you this though. The stain's not forever. I have the buckets that I use. If I deep clean them enough and using them for like when I'm deep cleaning the G40 or whatever, hot enough water sitting in there over a while, it gets rid of it if you care. But again, it's not enough to not use the product, guys. Iodophor, I'll put a link in it down there. I'll put a link to Star Sand. People are going to be in the comments. Star Sand's the best. Okay, that's great. I have hard water. Star Sand's not the best, but and which is a bummer why Sand Step didn't work, didn't catch on, because people with hard water could use Sand Step or iodophor and not have it lose efficacy, right? Like that was one of the major things of how stable it stayed in hard water. But anyways, moving on. Eric, thank you so much. A reminder, guys, when you text or email to Joshua at homebrewhappyhour.com or our hotline 325-305-6107. You get yourself a gift card to kegconnection.com. We prefer voicemails. I'm getting low, and like the 15-ish voicemails I have, most of them are redundant or it's the same person. And I've been instructed now I cannot keep giving the same people gift cards every week. They're just going to end up buying the last remaining brow tag after years of submitting questions. So I need some new blood in there. So go down, call it in, leave a voicemail, 325-305-6107. Takes us to our third and final question of this week's episode. It's an email from our buddy Preston, an old email, and he wrote, in my home brewing setup, I use direct fire for heating my mash and of course for boiling as well. I've encountered issues with scorching grains at the bottom of the mash tun, which is also the boil kettle. I'm doing brew in a bag. Any tips for avoiding scorched grains? I haven't had a batch ruined yet, and I would like to keep it that way. Your friend, Preston. All these people without ruined batches, they're just showing off at this point. I've never ruined a batch. I'm going to send an email to another podcast and go, I ruin every other batch. Help me. No.
I've never brewed in a bag. I don't know how much it matters. I know it's not literally like a steeping bag, like you can stir. Because my first thing, James, is like if you're using a non-recirculation, stirring should help you get the grains off the bottom from just sitting there and scorching. Isn't that, or what? I guess I'll throw it to you as the question, what causes scorched grains in the first place?
Well, it's man, that's hard to imagine doing a mass direct fire with brew in a bag, because that bag's gonna be sitting on the bottom of that pot, that kettle. You've got direct heat on the underside of that. Yes, you could stir it, but you still got the bag in there. I'll tell you what I would do. I would find out the bottom of the kettle diameter and just throw a false bottom in there. So that gives you a little gap there to keep anything from scorching. I mean, the only other option would be stir the thing. Just stand over it and stir it, because that's the only thing. Here's what I would do. I would invest in a really good cooler, because most of the brew in the bags are designed for a cooler setup. And then you could do just a single infusion, put it all in there, button it up, you'll have to get a strike water calculator. And I pulled one up, and here's an example. So if you're using a cooler, you're just heating your mash water a little hotter. So I like to target just a generic mashing range of 150 degrees. That gets you alpha and beta kind of in the middle. So if you're going to do a 5-gallon batch, you have to account for grain absorption. So let's just say we're going to do 6 gallons. So in there, it's going to ask how many gallons. So we'll put in 6 gallons. And then it's going to want to know the grain weight. And typical 5-gallon batch all grain kit's about 8 pounds. So I've got 8 pounds in there. Excuse me, there's somebody in the office and she likes to say hi to everybody. So going back, we've got 6 gallons strike water volume. We've got 8 pounds of grain. The grain temperature is typically room temp. And so I've got 70 degrees in there. My target is 150. And there's about a 3-degree thermal loss. So it's just a loss factor. If you have to, it's always good to go just a little bit warmer, because then you can add some water, some cold water to get it where you want to go. Most of the time when I was doing Big Bertha, that's how we would mash in a big cooler. So it says that you need to be at about 158 degrees. So if you heat your 6 gallons of water up to 158 degrees, throw your grains, your Bruner bag grains in a cooler, stir that into the grains and stir it really good, so you don't want any dough balls, and then close it up. And the one that we did, I think we had a thermometer down in the mash. You could also, if you have a really long thermometer, you can put it in the side with a bulkhead fitting. It makes it a little harder to stir, or you could just put it right through the center of the lid. Just drill a little tiny hole and then push the stem through there. But you want to make sure that there's enough in there to where it hits the mash water. And then that way you can monitor it. When we did the video with the cooler brew, we only dropped not even a degree in an hour.
People thought it was fake. I mean, I had comments. Yeah. They're like, "That isn't." No, literally, that was a one-take video. We weren't brewing. we were just capturing the brew day, and y'all's reactions is why I think it was funny when if I haven't had this feedback in forever, but when people are like that, oh, okay. I was like, no, do you not see? I think Todd did the reading, or I forgot who did the reading. Either way, y'all's reaction was like, no way. It dropped like a degree tops. It was wild.
And we would do, we had a 45-gallon cooler with that Big Bertha gravity flow, because we had a HLT, then we had our mash, and then we had a boil kettle. So we had 50-gallon HLT, 45-gallon cooler, and a 50-gallon boil kettle. And these were 300,000 BTU banjo burners. I mean, the heads were that big. We could do almost 10 gallons of propane in one brewing.
Oh my gosh.
That's how much. I mean, we initially set this system up, and I'll have to send you a picture and you can put it on the website. But we had it in, the place I was renting was a good friend of mine. Thank you, Barry. him and his dad built this 40 by 60 hobby shop. So it had like a 2,000 square foot front room, and then it had a little back room with living quarters and a bathroom and a kitchen. It was super cool. So we set this up. We only brewed in there one time because it was in the middle of winter,
and still
we were using that, and those burners ran us out of the building. We had the garage door open and every window open, trying to get as much air. It was amazing how much heat it put off.
That's hilarious.
Well, that's what we had to do. Clay brought us a submersible thermocouple that we'd put down in the mash, and then we would close the lid and we could watch it, and it would drop 1 or 2 degrees in an hour. It was amazing how, I guess, when you've got the mash, and we were doing 1-to-1, we weren't worrying about recirculation. So your water to grain ratio is 1-to-1. So it tends to be a thicker mash, but that's kind of what you need. And it held temperature every single time. It was never an issue. Mash temperature was never an issue.
And
so think about doing that,
because you're not doing a heat source, a consistent heat source at the bottom of it. You don't have to worry about scorching. Literally, you cannot scorch grains that are just sitting.
Not to mention, he's think about it. He's having to turn it down, turn it up, turn it off. I mean, he's constantly having to work the flame on the mash pot, because you can't just leave a flame going. Then it gets too hot. That's another thing. I worry about the mashing temperature at the bottom of the kettle. If he's just reading it from the top, it's going to be considerably hot. If it's hot enough to scorch, it's way over mash temp at the bottom. So I would have to see his process and help him to kind of. But I think the easiest thing initially would be to put a false bottom in it.
I like that idea.
Above.
If he's dead set on doing,
typically not high.
If he's dead set on continuing the process he's doing right now, but like you said, assuming he's doing 5-gallon batches, an igloo style cooler is very affordable, and like you said, in my opinion, worth the ease of mind knowing you close it up. Like you said, use a calculator so you can know what the water needs to come in at. Then close it up and just be grateful that you don't have to nanny it for an hour. Because the solutions we're describing, if he wants to keep doing it the way he's doing it, he, like you said, it's likely he's already nannying this batch, because you can't just set and forget a banjo burner and expect it to stay. Oh, I got it to 150 and that's it. No, it's going to continuously get warmer. I imagine. I don't know. I actually haven't. I haven't bought a turkey burner in a very long time, so I don't know if they are. You could dial them in to be a consistent temperature the entire time. I doubt it, but again, I don't know. But it would be just getting a cooler. Just go to Walmart or Academy and just buy a cooler would fix the problem, and you'd never have to worry about scorching mash. Not to mention the fact that you're not going to have to sit there and monitor it, stand over that thing to keep it from scorching and stirring it and move it. I think his brewing life would be a lot easier if he just got a cooler. I agree. Absolutely. And this is a great question to solicit feedback from you listening at home, especially if you're watching at youtube.com/homebrew happy hour, because your comments, your likes, your shares, your subscription, which is free at YouTube, all of that helps the algorithm know that our channel is relevant and our podcast episodes are like the least consumed. Like your video on the cooler brew, your video on the comparing the all like short form. I get why that's why they go to YouTube. They want to watch it. But if you happen to be watching there, leave a comment below. We sincerely appreciate it, because it does help the algorithm out a bunch. And if you have tips for Preston, if you're like, don't listen to these losers, they don't even use brew in a bag, here's what I do, leave that down there too. Yeah. We appreciate it, because we don't know everything. I tell people I do, but y'all know the truth. We don't know everything. And there's a lot
certainly not brew in a bag. I've done it. I've brewed that a couple of times.
Right. And I know like brew in a bag, dude, they double mill most of the time. I wonder if maybe he tried even changing the milling up, if that would help with the potential. I just don't know. That's why we're soliciting from people who do know, which is thankfully our community has grown so much. There are people who know. So I'll follow up with that.
I think the biggest problem with that, his whole setup is the direct fire in the mash. I think that his brewing day would be a lot easier if you just put it in a cooler.
Dude, I'm with you.
Just closed it up. And that's the one thing. If you're doing mashing in a cooler, get your strike temp calculator and know that. Make sure your thermometer's calibrated. Just pack a glass full of ice, as much crushed ice as you can pack in it, and then top it off with water, and it should be 32 degrees. As long as you got a calibrated thermometer and you know it's reading right, and you hit those get those numbers right on the strike water temperature calculator, you won't have any issues.
I
Done
agree.
it for years.
Absolutely. So, Preston, thank you so much. The last reminder, guys, when you email, text, or call in, preferably leaving a voicemail to 325-305-6107, and we use it on a future episode, you're going to get yourself a gift card to kegconnection.com. Mr. Carlson, that is all I have for you this week. I sincerely appreciate your time, and I'll see you next time I'm up there.
See ya.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, like I said, you could go to homebrewhappyhour.com, use that submit a question link. You could email joshua@homebrewhappyhour.com, but no, you're going to call 325-305-6107 and leave a voicemail that I can use because Todd doesn't think real people listen to the show. Thank you to our show sponsors like Muntons Malt Premium Grains for a better brew day. If you aren't already using Muntons, you can give them a try by joining our Trub Club at a recipe receiving level. For the best hops available online, give our friends at hopsdirect.com a visit and pick up what you need for your next brew day. Also, get a pack of premium imperial yeast along with delicious recipes from us when you join the Trub Club. Have I said this yet on this episode? Go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and come brew with us. On behalf of the absent Todd Burns, the extremely tall James Carlson, and the extremely short me, and the Pro Media Network, I am Joshua Stubing. Thanks for listening.